If you're shopping small, you probably expect a small price. And the 2023 Mazda CX-30 does fit that bill at just under $23,000 to start. There's a lot of competitors in this field. But this is the loaded Turbo Premium Plus, and it's just under $38,000. Why the big price spread? Well, Mazda lets you configure this car in either way. Low end, medium, and at the high end that competes with Audis and BMWs and other luxury cars. I'll tell you what's new for 2023, there isn't much, and why you should consider a car priced at this top end. The CX-30 has been out since the 2020 model year. There's no major changes that you can see on the surface, but underneath, the B and C pillars are stronger. There's rear side airbags. The Mazda CX-30 just does better when it's crashed. And when it's not, hopefully it never does, you'll see a beautiful looking small crossover. The CX-30 is style forward. When you get other cars of this size and this length, they tend to look stubby, they tend to look awkward. Mazda knows how to tailor a car, especially a small car, to make it look more expensive, and the details really count. The slim LED headlights, the way the turn signals fade, all the creases on the body, it does look like it's windswept, and it doesn't seem like it's a cheap car. You could actually park this next to, let's say, a BMW X1, a Mercedes GLA, and a lot of people would hesitate to think that this was cheaper. Great news if you like saving gas. 2 more mpg higher in every EPA cycle and 5 more horsepower. Mazda has made improvements to the cylinder deactivation, but not on the turbo engine. It makes a lot more horsepower and torque, which you will notice. Lower fuel efficiency, but all-wheel drive is standard on every CX-30, so the numbers aren't so bad. This is not an airport car, so pack light. 20 cubic feet behind the seats, 45 when folded. That's just the reality of driving a subcompact car, but that's what you wanted. At least I hope it is. Simplicity and good quality are the foundations of a Mazda interior. This one, no different. The seats are very, very supportive. The only issue, the high sill, the short windows. Even on that side and the passenger side, it actually blocks out some of the side view mirror, and out the back, you can barely see. But looking straight ahead, this is a very comfortable car to be in. On the top trims of the CX-30, you'll find color combos, 3 of them, a different top stitch dash on the dashboard itself, and these white leather seats. The whole combination of colors, of stitching, and all of the feel, even the plastic buttons. Every little detail makes you think you're in a higher end car, but you're not. Back here, I'm going to revoke what I said about the front. While the seating is very nice, the legroom isn't too bad, it's the headroom, including on the side. The door is just encroaching upon my shoulder. There's just not a lot of space here, and it gets claustrophobic really quickly. When I say simple, I mean everything except the infotainment. Mazda still is not using a touchscreen. That might be good for some people, but they don't give you a choice. So you have this older rotary control, which would be fine, but it doesn't work that well. An 8.8-inch screen comes standard. There's no touch. This wouldn't be a problem except when you go into the entertainment, there's no scrolling. Not even the volume knob here does actual seeking. So you have to go hit the menu, find the tuner controls, then scroll here. This is why it's a little maddening to use Mazda's system, because it just isn't as intuitive as newer system. Mazda swears that their rotary controller is the better solution, but I would disagree. For example, when you use Apple CarPlay, this is a system that responds to touch. That's how it was designed. So it's very difficult to use it with the rotary controller. But there's a lot of functionality. In addition to all the passive safety upgrades I was mentioning before about rear side airbags, things like that, a lot of active safety also comes standard on every CX-30. When you get the upper trims, you get rear emergency braking. That's very nice. But adaptive cruise, forward collision alert, forward braking, pedestrian detection, that's all standard. And if you get upper trims, you also get traffic jam assist, which works up to about 40 miles an hour to self-steer the car in the lane. It's also nice in this segment to have a head-up display, a real one that's projected on the windshield, not some piece of plastic that folds. And at this price point, you get a pretty good sounding Bose stereo system with surround sound modes that you can adjust here. The CX-30 has a very plush ride. It's quiet inside here, a lot of noise insulation that will trick you into thinking that you're in a luxury brand vehicle. Mazda's doing that across their lineup, specifically with the big CX-90. That's the new 3-row SUV. You can check that review out. But the same rules apply to the CX-30 when you step up to the turbo trim, and especially the Premium Plus Because I drive in this car, and to be honest, I don't want to be in a Mercedes GLA or any number of the entry-level luxury cars, because those cars are just trying to really cut down what they already had on upper trims to a lower price point. And you can see all the sacrifices that the luxury makers have to do to put those cars in your driveway for roughly 40K. You don't get anything. I don't like those cars. But in this Mazda, when you're spending at the very high end, you get the sense that they put in the detail, that they put in the quality. I don't know about you, but I don't like overpaying for a car, not especially in this market or anytime. So if you're coming around and you say, hey, I want a small SUV, I don't want to have a compact one, that's too big for you, fine. There's enough choices out there. But this is a surprising one, it really is. The seats are really comfortable, it's just really nice to drive, to the point where you really don't need the turbo engine if you're just cruising around. I will say though, the visibility is horrid in this car, so all the beautiful design features on the outside, it's feeling cramped inside here and difficult to see out of. The CX-30 is ordinarily kind of slow, but the turbo has a lot of get up and go. Not as much as you might think for the numbers it's putting out. Some of that is due to the 6-speed automatic transmission not being an 8-speed or a 9-speed. There's gaps in the gear ratios that don't take full advantage of how much output this engine is bringing. But that aside, it's definitely a satisfying car and not something you're going to find in this category, even in the lower to mid-30s. These turbo trims also come with paddle shifters. Can't find that on the lower CX-30 trims. And this is definitely sporty. If you're used to driving Mazdas, you know what I mean. Steering is communicative. All the controls are really nice. Pedal feel, all of that. But because this is lifted, I definitely feel the roll. It definitely kind of is a little too soft for my taste. For ride comfort, great. But I think the 3 hatchback is the one that has the better balance between the two. Mazda's tuned this CX-30 to be more compliant as an SUV owner might want to drive. But to be honest, I don't feel this is truly an SUV. I know that's what we call it. That's what Mazda calls it. This is really a small car. And if you really want to get that experience of having the small car handling, I really prefer the 3 hatchback. And it has nearly as much space inside, and you can get the same powertrain with all-wheel drive and a turbo. So check out that review. We've reviewed it. It's a great car. Yeah, this is still a fun car. It just does not quite have the same level of feedback and the poise that the 3 hatchback does. It's also not as good of a handling car as the Hyundai Kona. I really like that one. That's probably the sharpest one in the segment, but it doesn't ride very well. Subaru rolls like you're on a seesaw if you drive a Crosstrek, so that's not good. This car, it's a balance between all of them. Me personally, when I'm in a car this size, I don't feel like I need to be riding any higher. That's just me. I do think the turbo engine is worth it, especially if you're merging onto very fast highways. The naturally aspirated engine is okay. It's just not really great for really keeping up with the way people drive today. And all that extra torque is just more fun. Who doesn't want to talk about more torque? Not me. Mazda has a feature called G Vectoring Control Plus. Sounds pretty fancy. It's really a combination of throttle mapping and braking inputs on each of the 4 wheels that act like a torque vectoring system that will shift the torque left or right, or use the brakes on the back axle to shift essentially the momentum of the car around turns. It's very subtle. Nissan has a similar system on a lot of their cars, Mazda claims that this one works better. Of course they would, right? Mazda's better than Nissan, according to Mazda. But I can't really feel things like this working, but it is meant to be a subtle system, so when you are pushing the CX-30, you're really not supposed to have as much understeer. You're supposed to have a more neutral cornering attitude, which is good. Even the brakes are just a little too soft for me on the pedal feel. This is really, in fact, the comfortable Mazda. The 2023 Mazda CX-30 starts at $22,950. That's for the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder models. If you want the turbo, that starts at $33,800. Mine, with all the options and destination, is $37,505. It competes against the Hyundai Kona, Kia Soul, Subaru Crosstrek, and the Mazda CX-5. Other cars like the Volkswagen Taos are also a consideration, but the Mazda is like having two cars in one. I think this is your best choice if you're getting a subcompact crossover. You're getting the style, you're getting the quality, and the performance. All of those things are not in one car. This one has it. You do pay on this specific trim, but if you don't want those features, there's like more than 6 trims you can get with the CX-30. So I do like that, and all the standard safety features. Even after so many years of this thing being on the market, it still looks fresh, really fresh. If you want more info, go to CarGurus.com. We've got tons of listings for them, and go see our other Mazda reviews on the CarGurus YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.